What's ripening YouTube? All right, so I'm going to answer a couple more questions that I've had from some of my followers, kind of along the same lines. One was, how did I get started in permaculture? And another one was, how did I learn about the things that I do? Did I go to school, or did I kind of learn it as I go? I'll just kind of attack them both at the same time. The way that I got into permaculture, it would have been about 2009. I was living in the Caribbean with my girlfriend, and I had just started online graduate school. So I was taking my master's program at the University of Florida as online, and they had a sustainable engineering certificate program, which I signed up for. And it wasn't in the class, they didn't really talk about permaculture specifically, but in researching for some of my coursework, I did stumble across Jeff Lawton. I learned about the Greening the Desert project. I think it was at that time, or maybe it was shortly after that. I watched a bunch of Bill Mollison. I watched there was like an Earthworks workshop that Jeff had put up, and it really struck me because my educational background is as a civil engineer. So as a civil engineer, we learn how to deal, especially with the specialization that I did in civil engineering was geotechnical engineering, which is soils and construction management. I know very well how soils behave in terms of their structure, not so much in terms of their biology. That wasn't the focus of my education. We had classes on stormwater, we had classes on wastewater, we had classes on, different types of structures, different ways of moving water, holding soil, retaining walls and things like that. So when I saw that Earthworks course and they were building dams and swales and they were doing all this cool stuff, it was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. There was no, it didn't need to be explained to me. It just all made sense. Shortly after I learned about that, we moved back to the States. My wife was in veterinary school, and she had to take her last year at the University of Missouri. And while we were there, I was doing my online school still, and I was just completely immersed in permaculture. I got so into it. I was watching everything I could find. Frustratingly, there wasn't a whole lot. I ordered all the books, started watching all the YouTube videos, but I didn't have a place of my own to start. We were staying in an apartment, and I think I made one of those little worm bins, and I had a couple little container gardens in the back porch, and just basically had to wait. I had to wait about a year before we moved back to Florida. We moved back here to this town. We're in Punta Gorda, Florida, Southwest Florida. We moved back in 2010 and finally got our own house, and that's where I did my first permaculture food forest type project. And I converted a quarter acre, actually a little more than a quarter acre home site into a food forest, blew it out, planted things way too close, spent way too much time and effort on things that weren't that productive or helpful. And just because I was excited, and you read about something in a book or you see someone do it in a video and you get excited, what I've learned since then is that not everything applies to everything. Something that someone's doing in New Hampshire or California or India doesn't necessarily work here. So it's great to have the inspiration and the ideas, but you really have to drill down to what works in your climate and in your regime of time, resources, money, equipment, space, all those kinds of things. I learned a lot of lessons on that house. We ended up moving to another home and doing kind of the same process again. One thing that I did learn from the first one is that I actually had to undo a lot of the food forest so that we could sell the home, which was really disheartening, but it was also I think it was a really good experience to find out that if it's going to be valuable to more people, it can't just be totally wild child. It can't be, if you want permaculture to be accessible to more people, it has to look a certain way. And so I got really more dialed into the aesthetics, and at that time I got more into what I consider to be edible landscaping, which is, you know, looking at a traditional landscape design model and just swapping out things. You know, instead of having a feature tree that's an oak tree, let's do an avocado. Instead of having a low shrub hedge that's, you know, whatever it is in your area, you know, is there an edible version or something that's got some use to it? Kind of doing that plug and play style. And then the other side of that is just extending those beds and making them bigger, eliminating as much lawn as you can, but really kind of keep in mind that this, at least the front yard, has to have a certain aesthetic for it to be more widely accepted. One of the ways that I really learned a lot about fruit trees in specific was that I joined basically all of the tropical fruit tree clubs in my area. I think I was a part of like 4 or 5 of them at one time. And the reason I joined those clubs is because there wasn't very much information out there. There's a couple of places on the internet. There's the Tropical Fruit Forum. There's very few people that share information. But in these clubs, you can talk to people that have been in the tropical fruit game, some of them for decades. Some of these old timers have been in it for 50 years. You go to their houses and they have, the house is just towered over by these massive fruit trees. I've seen things at fellow group members' houses that I didn't even know were possible. Like one guy had a grimichama tree that was, you can see the oak tree behind me. It was taller than that, grimichama, which to me is a shrub. It's, you know, it's something that grows 10, 15 feet. His was 30 feet, easy. The entryway to his like if this was the walkway to the front of his house, it was lined with Jabota kaba trees that were, I think they were 30 years old. Each one of those was probably 15 or 20 feet tall, and they were all falling over. They're all tied to other trees. The most fruit I've ever, just ridiculous amount of fruit. And I started getting to know some of these people and going to their properties and learning from them specifically and getting the type of information that you will never find in a book, which is that first-hand information. And so for me, it would be second-hand information. But at the time, that was super valuable. I didn't have a lot of first-hand information. So if you have that in your area, if you have like a fruit group or a garden group that you can get involved with, it doesn't have to be permaculture. There's a lot of translation. There's a lot of, you can pull what you need from all kinds of resources. I would also encourage you, if you're out there and you do have a lot of information and you know things that I don't know or have a different perspective from what I'm saying or what you're seeing out there, is to try to build up the cojones to go and make a video. Do what I'm doing right now. Share what you have. There's so much hunger for knowledge out there. It's worthwhile to share, and it really is fulfilling to see other people and meet other people. I've been doing it for a little while. I don't feel like I'm a huge, YouTube star or whatever, but I meet people all the time that say, "Hey man, I watch all your videos. Thank you so much." So if you're out there and you do have a lot of information, put it out there. Don't be shy. Or call me and give me the information. Maybe I'll put it out there and I'll just give you credit for it. So anyway, that's how I got started with permaculture. Now I'm doing things totally different from when I started. I have a different perspective. I have different needs. Everything's different. So if you're getting started, don't worry about where you wish you were. Focus on where you're at now. Learn your lessons. Don't be afraid to mess up. If you can get the attention of someone like myself that's been doing this for 10 years or more, obviously go do it. But don't be afraid to make your own mistakes too. Especially if you can make them at a small scale. I would much rather see you make small mistakes in a short amount of time and learn and move on than to either not do anything or to make a huge mistake on if you're going to do some huge project and you don't have any background information. Make your mistakes early, often, and make them as small as you can if you have to. If you guys stay tuned, I am going to start offering more consultation services here in the future. We're working on my website, and I know I get people asking all the time, and most of the time I just say no. Usually, they're either too far away or I just don't have time. Try to increase my availability, either through phone consultation. I really don't want to travel too much from my own farm just because I'm really busy here. But it may be that I set up like maybe one day a month I go to I'll just make an announcement. I'm going to whatever county, and I have 3 spots available for site consultation, and let people sign up if they want to. Anyway, that's where we're at. That's another FAQ, frequently asked questions, how did I get started? And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any other questions, put them down below. Appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.